I'd like to call this meeting to order. And what I say to our guests is welcome to our special meeting of the Board of Supervisors for Monday, April the 20th. Our first order of business is our invocation, and this is where we observe a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand. And after we observe that moment of silence, we'll be led in the pledge by Mr. Meadows, our County Administrator.
Let us pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much.
Next order of business is to go into work session. Be it resolved, the Board of Supervisors hereby enters into work session for the purpose of discussing the following: FY 2016 budget. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We are in work session.
Mr. Chair, one thing I was going to mention as we start out this evening, of course, the purpose of tonight is to consider the fiscal year 2016 real estate tax rate and the other taxes and the operating budget for 2016. I know at the work session last Monday we had some conversations about one-time money and windfall money and whatnot. And I just wanted to remind the board again that decisions on those dollars don't have to be made this evening. You can certainly talk about them. I'm not saying that at all, but really the discussion tonight centers around the operating budget for the upcoming fiscal year and the tax rate. So I just wanted to clarify. I know there'd been some question about, well, did we need to address this or that? The one-time funds and the windfall monies, while they're available to address maybe some of the things that were talked about, that doesn't have to be decided this evening.
Mr. Tuck, I believe you have a couple slides and
Only 4 tonight.
only 4.
And just so y'all know, I'm in favor of the proposed budget, but with the additional funds and operating funds, I just have my suggestions on a few of the things. Let's see, slideshow. And going over Carol's numbers, there was $274,749 of operational money that will be reoccurring every single year. And I looked at the public safety building. We all agreed on that. I think that was unanimous that we said out of a $175 million budget, they were $19,000 off. That's pretty good. I don't know what the percentages are, but that's less than 1%. I would guarantee you that's probably less than, what, 1/10%.
Well, we're going to take some disciplinary action on that, but it won't happen again.
The inmate work crew, that again, when I'm looking at that, that is not a full-time position. That is using overtime funds with our current deputies to give them the opportunity. When you talk with some of the deputies that are working, a lot of them working second jobs, and they would like the opportunity to be able to have some overtime. We'd see if it worked. If it didn't work, then we could address it. We wouldn't have to let anybody go, or there wouldn't be a full-time position. Matt, I was not able to get the numbers on recidivism and whether that would be addressed. I was told, but it does save them money. The exact figures, even, they couldn't give me a number in a week to be able to do that. The majority of the board has already said $156,000, $200 towards the schools. This money, again, is in addition to what we're already giving. This was additional $5,000. We'll end up matching the $10,000 that Christiansburg has done, so that would be given to Christiansburg Institute $20,000. One of the things in talking with some of the folks with fire and rescue, they're saying that the penny is not going to be enough, that we're setting aside every year the $730,000. What I proposed, the bill had $13,000 coming out, but I started talking about a building fund. We know we're going to need 2 new rescue squads, one in Reiner and one down in Charlottesville. I know this is a small amount of money, but this would be reoccurring money that we would start putting in a pot to deal with capital building type issues with our rescue squad. Matt, one of Matt's points and through a lot of emails is talking about we have 4 people that work for the county that could, depending on the level of dependence, be under the poverty level. Setting aside, and that would obviously be reoccurring funds. And so setting it aside. Now, I don't have exact figures, and we still need to check on how many dependents they do have, but it wouldn't take that much money to be able to get those 4 people so they're above the poverty level. And I think that's an important thing for our county to be at. I think Matt's points were well taken. One-time funds. Now, this is obviously something we don't have to make a decision tonight, but I know that the school board is here and they're anxious to see some of those things done. And I took the 2 pots of money that Carol put up, which was the reassessment funds, and I think she referred to them as windfall. I guess it's something to me, I don't like to think of windfall when I'm using someone else's money, but I guess, so I'll say funds from the reassessment, the additional funds, and then undesignated funds. When you put those together, it works out to be a little over $1 million. The library drainage repair, I agree with. The frog pond refurbishment, not everybody can afford to be in the country club. And this gives every county resident the chance to be able to take their kids and go swimming and learn how to swim. And not all the folks live in the towns. And both towns have indoor pools, but not the opportunity to get outdoors. And I think it's a good facility, but we need to be able to address that. Matt's points from last meeting, that the inmate work crew, that is a one-time cost. So it's $41,000. I got some updated numbers from Carol. Looks like $41,500. That's to buy the equipment and get them started. Again, if the program doesn't work, then we would be able to utilize those for our maintenance. Many of y'all saw the email that came out regarding the voting machines. It's $128,000. That money's going to have to come from someplace. In my mind, this is what the one-time money is. Now, I was uncertain, I believe it was on the agenda in regards to transferring the funds for this Charlottesville Elementary School, where we are purchasing that, and that money is going into the funds for the school construction. That was $74,700. Restoring the capital reserve, $42,000. I know there's some questions about the $13,000 may have come out of that, but I'd still like to see that number stay around the $40,000 mark. Additional school funds of $226,000. Gary, I know you want to hear how they're going to spend that money. I'd love to hear that they're going to spend it on maintenance, but this isn't all the money they've asked for. And since it isn't, I'd like to be able to give them some flexibility. I know we put in 2 new buses, as well as there was technology, but that $226,000 doesn't come up yet. The employee bonus, this is something both Matt and Todd talked about, and we roughly have 450 employees. If we give every employee come November, whether you're making $100,000 or you're only making that $20,000, a $200 bonus at Christmas time or Thanksgiving time, I think would be pretty important. It doesn't have the paternity leave, paid paternity leave that Matt had talked about. I looked at that issue. I talked with Matt a little bit about it. But in the rankings for the people who are going to have children, it was 6 from 20 to 29. It was 8 from 30 to 39. And then after that, it was down around 10. We did a study, and we said that we were going to listen to what our employees said. And if you look at it, more money is one of the things that everybody wanted. Now, this is one-time money, and there's no promise that that bonus is going to be there again next year. But it addresses what they said that they wanted, and this is what our employees said. And when we met on August the 11th, and we committed, we said, we want to do that study. And I'm looking at myself, and all of us are generated by our own life experiences. If I have a regret, it's that I was too stubborn and didn't listen to my wife, and we didn't have a 3rd child. So I understand that we want people to have families, and we want this to be a great place to raise a family. But this is not what our employees asked for. And so I think that we need to honor that and address that. Reserved for the animal shelter. Now, I don't want to see us spend as much as some of y'all want to spend on the animal shelter, but we're going to have to deal with it. and it's coming up, and it's going to have to be addressed. It's not as much as we would like, but when you start throwing in the $128,000 for the voting machines, that eats up a lot of that. That's 12% roughly of that one-time money. Now, the other thing is, if we save money, and I do believe we're going to end up saving around $40,000 of reoccurring money on the inmate labor program, perhaps we could be able to use that, but that'll be rollover money, and after that first year, that'll give us a better idea. Those are my thoughts on the budget. I know they may not be your thoughts. I understand that I'm putting myself out there. I'm okay with y'all saying, hey, Chris, I disagree with you on this point. But at the same time, I always felt like I needed to at least save and put out there what I thought and what we ought to do. I'm very happy with the budget that the county put forward this year. It's fiscally sound, and I think it continues on getting us on good, solid financial state. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Okay, discussion.
Well, aren't the employees already getting an increase in their salaries that's already part of the budget?
In the proposed budget, there is a 2.5%, 2%, thank you, help keep me straight, 2% market adjustment, and then a 2% merit over the course of the year. And in talking with Supervisor Tuck earlier, this would be an amount on top of that would be paid similar to a holiday bonus type pay.
It's merit. What I put up there is $5,000 more than what the paternity leave was going to be. But if you looked at that ranking, salaries was something that affected every single employee. And so that's why, you had to try to get $188 has worked out to $85,000. So I tried to round it up to be $200 and roughly for 450 employees, which is on the county side of things, give or take.
And I'm also having an issue taking money out of the animal shelter, which we know is so desperately needed when we're not sure that the inmate program is going to save money. So that sort of makes me uneasy because we've been trying for so long to do something to address the needs at that animal shelter. That makes me uneasy to take money away because it's just a little bit there.
Where did you take the money?
Well, we originally,
237, I think, was the
there was
original animal
287,
shelter.
333, and now it's down to 215,333. So, I also wanted to report to you, I don't see the library master plan in there, and I wanted to report back. I did take it back to the library board, and I told them of the discussion we had, and Paula had listened to the meeting, and everyone was torn because they need money for books, but they also know that they're facing in the future capital needs. And so I wanted to report back sort of what the discussion was. They felt like, the majority felt that they needed to keep a master plan for the library alive, since there was one for schools and one for Parks and Rec that involved capital. And they really need to look at the aging buildings in Christiansburg and Blacksburg, even if they're looking at the maintenance part of those, because every few months something comes up with maintenance in those two buildings. And they see the study as something that could look at defining the direction that the library board might want to take in addressing physical spaces and what's going to be needed for the growing population. It was even talked about that, what will happen, like when you have to address library needs in the future in Christiansburg and Blacksburg, do you address them individually or do you address them as a combined centralized library? They seemed to really feel that they needed to have some kind of study in place or ongoing study just to get down what their thinking might be for 10 years hence, knowing that there's not going to be money available for a while to actually do anything. So they see it as a planning tool. Now, in regards to the price of it, the $35,000, it was discussed that perhaps, maybe that, it could be done at a little bit cheaper rate if you combined it with perhaps another study like Parks and Rec, because they're both services for county citizens. But the board did feel that it would be important to have some kind of funding, like in a fund for some kind of planning for capital needs. So I wanted to report that back to you, that they felt like that was something that they did need.
Mary, can I ask, was there specifically like that they feel like the roof is 25 years old, or that they need that, here they've asked for drainage repair to make sure, because my understanding from that last meeting, you talked about the slip and fall issues and the ice and everything.
There are wiring issues, like the support for wiring in the Blacksburg and the Christiansburg Library for future needs, like that involve electronics and all that kind of thing. There are wiring issues there. They're just overall space issues. And so Blacksburg is landlocked. There's no way you can expand that particular library, I guess, unless you went up or something. I don't know what you do, but so I guess what they're saying is they want to keep it in the forefront of something that needs to be recognized and planned for in the future, because it is such a big service to the citizens. So I said I would come back and report that, and whatever you all want to do with that, but they seem to think it was important. I just don't know if we could get it at a cheaper rate, or combine the Parks and Rec and maybe, get it at a cheaper rate.
Hadn't it already been?
I don't know.
I think the planning commission is.
It's funded. It's funded and underway, yes.
So I don't know what you could really do with it. But that was the discussion.
Okay. Other comments? Mr. Creed?
2 or 3 things here that kind of gets in my crawl a little bit. I'll just start with the top, the school funding, the $226,000. I am not exactly for it, but at the same time, I would like to see, if it was given to them, that they give us a report on where the money is being spent. I mean, they haven't done that for forever almost. We need to, and we should know where money is going to be spent before we actually give any money out. I mean, we just can't go down the road walking down and flipping $100 bills out. That's just wrong. The next thing is the animal shelter. I don't think that's enough. I don't think even we renewed it to where it was at, it's enough. I don't know how we're going to get by if someone ever comes over and inspects that thing. You're going to have to fix it that day. And what I mean by that is that all the animals are going to have to be shipped somewhere, whether it's there, whether it's somewhere else. The animals will have to be shipped. We've got, this board right here voted to purchase the land over there to where it could be seen, to where we could have a good, and I wasn't in favor of all that, but we did it. So if we're going to do it, let's don't have to do it. We need to. That is something that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed now, and it needs to be addressed most definitely before somebody comes in and say, "Hey, you've got to do this." Because I don't think there's anybody that even don't like dogs that wouldn't jump up and down and say, hey, if you're going to build it, build it. If you ain't going to build it, get out of the way. And that's just not a good thing. $41,500. Where is that at? There it is. If we've gotten by with it so far by using the inmates that we have and still picking up and looking pretty doggone good, why couldn't we use that money at least to go for the animal shelter?
And if you don't want to do, I mean, if the majority of the board doesn't want to do the work crew, that would have, we're paying, if I remember the numbers, it was around 40. There was some snow removal that was involved, but about $40,000 per year. We're paying other people to mow because we don't have enough employees, so we're having to contract out. And my thoughts are you can get a day and a half good time, and Kim's here, and she can correct me if I'm wrong, if you are a trustee. So if you're serving a 12-month sentence, that roughly gets you 18 days off. And so then that saves us money there on that end of things as well, not just cleaning up, but that money, that $41,500 is to buy the truck that they need, to buy the mowers that they need, and to buy the trailer that they need.
That's right.
So that's what that 41.
And I understand that, but why not go and let them do things within the courthouse after it closes up, and a lot of other places that they could use it that already have officers in there watching over everything as they go.
When you start, and Kim is here, she just happens to be here, I guess this is the deputy that's here with us tonight, but I don't think that they just let inmates go loose in the building.
Oh, I didn't say that they should go loose in the building, but there are people that's their job, is to stay there and make sure that,
But they're dealing with security issues. I think that's very different than when you're overseeing an inmate who trustees are. There are folks that are there for not major crimes, but minor crimes, and there are people that have proven themselves by not misbehaving while they're in jail. But that fund, I'm hoping that will end up paying for itself, but you've got to have the mowers to do it, and to make it pay for itself.
How many mowers do you think you're going to buy?
They had the list, I think it was about, the truck was $28,000, and roughly the other equipment was about $13,000. The plan was to work several inmates, and I know that those mowers are not cheap, but that they would have a couple of inmates working the weed eaters, a couple on the mowers, and that's probably, you'd have a 5-man crew with a deputy overseeing them. And we'd see how that works, and let them start doing things. And then when they weren't mowing the grass, maybe they could help on, other things like you're talking about, but you still have to have that deputy there monitoring. You just can't, I'm not law enforcement, but my observations, they just don't let the inmates, they have to have that supervision.
What are the people who are raising their families on doing some grass mowing and stuff? I've seen them around all these different places all the time. Where are they going to go now if they don't have a job? Basically, that's what you're telling me, is that they will not have a job.
You're right. We won't be employing independent contractors with government funds. But I guess I look at it as a duty to try to see if we can save $1. I believe we can. I believe over the long run that we'll end up maybe even saving 60, not 60, we'll be saving about $20,000 a year, because we'll end up getting more work out of the inmate, plus we'll lower our jail bill. But I'm not saying I'm 100% right.
Are you going to have them bring these mowers, these 2 mowers that you got in for service, and wait on them, or?
That would be probably part of it. If some of the equipment breaks down, then the deputy, I'm sure would, or a deputy who's working some overtime.
Well, if it don't break them down, your service work has to be done on them.
Yeah.
And, that's,
And that's part, by not having a full-time employee, there was roughly, if you remember from the last presentation, it was about $55,000, I think it was, for the full-time deputy. And there was a reoccurring expense of about $2,000 for fuel and maintenance. And correct, Carol, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's around $2,000. So I'm lowering that down to $50,000. And working with it when that money runs out. So we would use it during the summertime when we need the mowing the most. Then if we have some extra money for them to be able to take care of some of the winter items, the shoveling the snow and helping out doing those things, then we would utilize them.
You know, I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. What I'm saying is this: there are more deserving things on that list up there than meets the eye. And one of them, big time, is the animal shelter.
One thing, Mr. Creed, that the county deals with contractors who mow these grasses. These are not the only contracts that they have. They have a whole lot of, if they was, I don't think we can pay them enough if their crews worked exclusively for the county. So they have other contracts. I mean, I have a lot of friends who have contracts, and they have more than they can do. And so it wouldn't be putting them out of work because they have other jobs that they can go on. And then you said something about when this courthouse was closed, like having them like loose in the courthouse. Well, the people who work in the courthouse, they work a normal 40-hour week, and some of them part-time. That if the courthouse closed at 5, you still have to have somebody on overtime in there with them if you was going to do something with them because of the scheduling. I mean, and I don't know whether you said, well, people was going to be there anyway. No, when it closes down, I think it closes down.
Don't have anybody.
The custodian people clean up through the day, don't they?
And I think we're a little bit like 5 o'clock.
Early morning and stuff, yeah.
I think the custodian staff comes in at 5. But then a custodian is not trained to
do security,
an inmate. And I wouldn't want, you know, when I was putting myself through law school, I was a janitor at one point in time, and I don't know that I would have been the appropriate person to supervise an inmate. Now, I might have been, but I didn't have that kind of training.
Well, and again, I understand that, but you just kind of said the same thing backwards. So you said that the custodian was not trained for that type work. These people in jail are not trained for that type work either.
Most lawn mowing work, you don't need a lot of training. Now, I'm not saying you don't need some, but you don't need as much.
You'd be surprised in that jail how many plumbers and carpenters and people that know how to do stuff, painters and things like this. I think that I know when Louis Barber was sheriff, he was talking about, well, I got this plumbed out, I got that plumbed out. So we got one of the best plumbers there is in jail, and carpenters and things like that to get stuff done. So because of brick masons, carpenters, and things like that, mechanics and so forth, they mess up and they go to jail too.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, so.
You know, I've been around a little bit, and for a long, maybe longer than anybody here.
You're getting there. Yeah.
But it hasn't been but about 3 years ago that I had a fellow come to me. I had a nice little lawnmower that everybody said it, they drove themselves, they zero turn and did such a wonderful job. Well, it did until he went down towards the cotton picking pond, and when he got to the pond, he got scared and he bailed out, and my lawnmower kept going. Now, and he...
I shouldn't laugh at your but it's...
Golly.
But that he came as someone that was well versed on what he was doing. And that, but those things happen. And sometimes it's better to give the people that are actually using their own equipment, because I guarantee you they're going to know what they're doing when they take off. I don't know. Y'all go ahead.
That's another thing. How would they be insured?
Trustees, they aren't covered under workers' comp. They are just, if they do hurt themselves, we do have, the 8th
Pay
Amendment of the
medical, yeah.
Constitution does require that we provide them medical care. But when you start talking about inmates being in closed confinement, there are times that they get on each other's nerves and they end up with medical bills. Sometimes when they're coming home tired and they've been working all day, they go to sleep. And they don't have as many problems when folks are coming back and they've had a full day's work. Just kind of like, as I'm getting older, I notice I don't mind a nap in the afternoons as much as but that is also covered as far as
I can't work.
their medical bills. We are responsible for if they do get injured.
Well, I do appreciate one thing you putting in there to catch some of them employees up out of pocket. I do appreciate that. I really do.
Well, Matt had wanted to do something for the employees. We looked at that study. I really looked at that hard, what he was wanting to do, and that was part of the money that we would kind of looked at initially the other night. And I know that was something important to both of y'all as far as making sure that the little guy got a bonus just like the big guy. And so I was trying to look at ways to try to address that. I was trying to look at ways to put up enough money for the animal shelter. Unfortunately, there's only $1,083.67. $83,067 there. So there's not as much money. If there was $20 million, there's still $20 million worth of projects. So
That does. And the school funding, 226. I think the other night they quoted there's going to buy 6 new buses.
I want to say it was 2 new buses they had in their budget. And
They had the budget for 4. And then he come back and asked for 153 for 2 more. And that made 6.
And then there was, I think.
And then there was
$150,000.
$150,000, if I recall correctly, for technology. And so I was, I know that all of this board is concerned about education.
Right.
I was just trying to address that and trying to come up with $128,000 to pay for new voting machines.
Can I ask a question about the voting machines? Didn't we already know this was going to be an issue? Where were we going to take this money?
No,
We didn't know.
They just,
Yeah, but they've been talking about it.
Well, they have
Right.
been talking about it, but there was no assumption that,
Another year.
there was no assumption, number
Okay,
one, that they
so-
were going to decertify them.
There
and
was
number-
some discussion that the governor proposed, the state actually paid for them, but the
That-
Yeah, that
General
didn't
Assembly
happen.
unfortunately did not support that.
Right.
So I guess my question is, does that $128,000 have to come out of this money, or is there, like, what would we have done if we didn't have this money? Where would we have taken that for voting machines?
The fund balance, our general fund balance. Because that was something that we talked about earlier on, is if they did decertify the machines, that may be something that we need to use the one-time money for. But if we didn't have this available at all, we'd have to appropriate it out of our
Okay.
fund balance.
And then I guess the other question that sort of goes with, I don't know if it goes with what you're asking, but like on the school funding, if we cut the funding that we sort of talked about last week,
no, I'm not cutting that at all. That's already, the 4 of y'all already.
It's on the other slide.
And
Well-
that's on the other slide. This is one-time money. There's 100 and, I have to tap back these slides, please.
yeah, I want to see where the other money is.
If you don't mind, I appreciate that. All right, that's one-time funds, and go back one more slide. You see, the majority of the board committed to $156,000.
Right.
That's
Okay, got
reoccurring
that.
money. That is money that they will have next year and the year after. That is the $274,000 that Carol talked about last week. And so, the majority of the board, so I went ahead and put that in there. That's also why I put the $19,000 in there. Annette talked about the Christiansburg Institute and hoping that we would find the $5,000.
But where did you take the $5,000 from?
If you look at, from Matt's discussions, we put $41,000 and took that out of, or about 40, initially it was $49,000 out of the inmate work group. Part of that, $41,000 of it is from one-time money because it's one-time purchases. It's a truck, it's lawnmower, it's not reoccurring expenses. So when you looked at that, there was a $35,000 for the library study.
Right.
And so, and I hadn't heard.
So that's where you took the money, was from the library study?
Part of it's from the library study, and part of it's the $49,000. If you look there, if you look back at what Carol presented, it was right at $99,500. I took
Right, got that.
$49,500 of that is reoccurring money. I mean, not reoccurring, one-time money. So that's $41,000. You look at those numbers, that's where the funds came out of.
Okay, so what you're saying is, like, for the one-time available dollars,
This is reoccurring money. This is money that we're going to have every year. This is not one-time
right,
money.
but like, for the one-time dollars, on your slide, you're wanting to give the schools
26,207.
206,207.
Right.
But in our original thing, we talked about giving them
300.
153,707 for 2 school buses and technology 150. So actually that is a cut to the one-time money for schools.
It is. We've got to find a way to pay for the voting machines, and that's 128, and we'll have to have those by
So we're going to
November.
pay for the voting machines out of the school money.
Well, the staff just put out ideas.
Yeah, but see, I'm trying to get this straight in my brain so I can figure out where we can get, what we can do to make it be better.
To me, I tried to prioritize and still give the schools, at 226,000. It's not the roughly 300,000 that we had talked about last week, but we've got a lot of demands and not a lot of one-time money. We've got a little over $1 million.
Okay, well, then I guess my other question then is, like, if we're going to cut some of the one-time school money, and I know the schools didn't want to do this, but can we use any of the bond money to replace the one-time money if we're going to pay for voting machines out of the one-time money?
Well, when we met with the schools, and Ms. Blackburn said they really didn't want to do that.
But that's before we knew we were paying for voting machines.
That is true, but to me, that $500,000 is their rainy day fund.
That's right, that's what
In
you're
case
saying.
something bad happens, that they have $500,000 to try to address it. Is that enough for a rainy day fund? In my opinion, it's not. But we have a lot of demands. Do you take more money out of the animal shelter to put it in school fund? That would not make Gary happy, wouldn't make you happy.
No, I'm
But
not
we
happy
tried
about the animal shelter.
And so sometimes you don't make everybody happy, you do the best you know how. And I was trying to address a lot of our county's needs in my perspective, not necessarily each one of y'all's.
Yeah, okay, well, that helps. I'm trying to get it straight in my brain because I'm still wanting to know how we can balance that out a little bit better.
There's always going to be fund balance as well.
Yeah, I mean, because if the voting machines had happened, we'd have to address it some way if we didn't have this money.
Right, but we do have it, and that way we can leave our capital reserves and everything intact and not have to draw down. This is one-time money, and this is an issue that we know we're going to have to deal with.
But when I talked to Miss Blackburn on the phone one time, she told me it was $775,000, but she could do what she needed to do with $550,000.
And that's about the amount we had if you added all those different things together last week. And so I guess what I'm trying to figure out, like how to pay for the voting machines and leave everything else like we discussed it, sort of with that part of it, but I don't know.
So what you're saying is this 226 is going to take place?
This added to, yeah.
Because
Okay, I
the
see.
money has to come from someplace.
And see, then they're not going to have the 500 and some. Let's add that up fast here.
Well, one thing I'd like to see happen though on the other one is the frog pond refurbishment.
Yeah,
I'd like to see us move forward on that
yeah.
because that's in
That has
bad
to be
shape.
done.
I'd like to see if we couldn't move that forward tonight or something maybe.
I don't think he might be obligated. He's spending
And 2 from 9 and 7.
And we
So the
can-
schools are about
we can
77,500 short. Okay.
Yeah, because they need to get them lined up for the fall where everybody else jumps in line. But
He has one, yeah.
Okay, Matt.
No, go ahead.
Okay,
Let
go
it
ahead,
go.
Nanette.
No.
Nanette.
I'd like to look at the bond money one more time. You were saying that, I know that they didn't want to take that money out for in case they have an emergency, but you know, I'm not sure what kind of emergency they have, but we have a roof fund. We have $6.5 million in the capital expenses fund. We have a number. We don't know how much they're going to have in their leftover funds at the end of the year. I hope it's not as much as they've had before, but I mean, I hope they have some. So it seems like to me that we've got a lot of money sitting there designated for schools. And if a major catastrophe occurs, which more than likely will occur with a building, will it not?
I'd have to agree. What if we
Then we
just,
have plenty of money for that.
well, not plenty, because
Well, we have enough to handle, well, if you got $6.5 million, we probably don't have enough money to build a new school, but
I guess I would be, if the school board came back to us and said, we want to use that bond money, would I reconsider and think about it? Sure, I would. But when they came to us, and we've been working on a relationship, and there's been times that I probably added to the rocky nature of the relationship. I admit that. But when they came before us and they said, look, this is money that we want to keep in reserve, I tried to listen to them. Now, were there things that I wanted them to do? Sure, I've been wanting them to do the maintenance, and sure, I wanted them to reduce their hours to 29, but I don't get to make those decisions. But I do know that the school board's got a tough job. So,
been there, not done that. But
Matt?
I know that it seems to me that the $560,000 is pretty much for us to decide. Those are bond funds that we issued to help build those schools. It was not, I mean, you know, they were to build within those frameworks, but that was not money for them to spend any way they wanted to.
Okay, Matt.
Am I wrong? I mean, I don't know. I just don't know.
I'm sorry.
there was some of the money that we can't for capital. and I was like, I mean, I'm trying to, she asked me that question. But there was some of the money that is designated that has to be used for capital expenditures. It can't just be used for day-to-day operation.
Sure. We all know that. But, you know, it's like you can save 15% on your insurance. Everybody knows that. I'm sorry, Matt.
Okay.
I was going to just make a suggestion, is that there seems to be, almost all the conversation is about this one-time funds, which we don't have to appropriate right now. So
Right.
perhaps, maybe even next week, we could have a work session specifically on these one-time funds. What I was going to suggest, however, and then I wanted to talk about the specific budgetary items that we have to make the decision about today, is that it seems like, and forgive me if I'm wrong, is that the library drainage, the frog pond, and probably actually the voting machines, that I think we're all in agreement that we need to take care of those. So perhaps maybe even a resolution for appropriation next meeting, and then we can deal with the rest of the money. We can talk about that in the work session and kind of go from there. The only other thing I wanted to say about the one-time funds, just in response to Chris's, and again, I thank you for this other view, is that the bonus as opposed to the parental leave kind of pot of money is that the pot of money was actually $15,000 less than the bonus, only $75,000. And secondly is that, and you and I had this conversation, is that I think if you read the list of priorities that the employees were giving, is that it was put up against benefits that the employees already had. and it was asked to rank them based upon like, healthcare, dental, eye, and stuff like that. And so of course those are going to rank higher. Of new or different ones, there was indeed like higher salary was a higher rating, but the next, especially for the younger demographics of people that we're particularly trying to attract into this county and into county employment, that was the second highest. And so I still think this is an incredibly useful benefit. Again, we would be the first locality in the state of Virginia, in the Commonwealth, to offer this thing. I think it would be wonderful for us to do. But again, we can have that conversation perhaps next week. If I may, can I just go back to Chris's other slide here, and then I'll have a comment about that. Are you okay? Thank you.
Mark can't get over there because he ran in a marathon on Saturday, so that's why.
I'm sorry, I was not.
I thought you were alternating.
I was thinking, why is he moving so slow?
I'm not ever running in a marathon, so I can help.
Now, for these funds, this is what we need to make a decision on tonight, because this goes into the regular budget. I think generally this looks very good to me, and I appreciate, especially Chris, as he mentioned, that last line item is that adding to the salaries of our least for our lowest paid employees, so that regardless of how many dependents that they have, that their salary would be above the federal poverty levels. And I think that's a really critical. It's an important statement for this county to be making, that we pay people above that level. Again, the only thing I would quibble with, but of course it depends on the majority of the people here, is about the inmate work crew. I am still unconvinced of the need for that, and I think the question that we really need to ask ourselves is again, does this help rehabilitate the people who are in the jails, and in fact return them, once they're out of jails, into productive members of society, help them return to the rest of the population, or are we just looking to save a buck? And if that's the case, then I'm not sure that that's really the direction we should be going, because they are under our care. They have. And we shouldn't be looking just to make sure that we're saving some money on the backs of some cheap or free labor. And if that's the primary reason that we're doing it, I would ask us to reconsider about why we're doing that. So that was my primary motivation in asking for the recidivism rates last week, which I know it's impossible to gather that data in a week. If somebody can show me that data that says, you know what, this helps immensely in these neighboring localities, I could be convinced, but right now that's the only point that I would rather see that $50,000 go to something else, and that could be to the schools. It could be to it could go into one of our capital funds. I mean, there's a million other things. Parks and Rec could certainly use that extra $50,000, perhaps to hire some more staff for recreational leagues or things like that. So, but that's really all I have to say. I mean, again, I'd suggest maybe we push off the one-time funds and maybe just talk about these monies so we know exactly kind of what we want to do there.
And I want to make something clear. It's not forcing inmates to work. This is not like the old chain gangs where you hook them up to chain. And I see Kim has waved her hand, and she is the head of the jail. She works trustees on a regular basis. I saw her wave. I don't know if you're willing to discuss it. Kim, can I ask you a few questions about the inmate?
Yeah, come on up so we can hear you.
And I'm not implying that we're forcing people to work, but there's also a choice that someone makes when they're incarcerated is not necessarily a free choice. And wanting to get outside and doing labor on behalf that we would be paying a fair wage to someone else to is, again, that's different than if this is actually working to rehabilitate someone, and you can show me data that would support that.
Kim, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I'm just going to ask you some questions about your inmate program, because you've got trustees that you work on a regular basis. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And I know there was some concerns about safety issues. Do you have many escapes with trustees?
No, gosh. None that I'm aware of.
And how long have you been with the county now?
13 years.
And and so that aspect of things, do you have enough trustees at the jail who want, or people who want to be trustees to be able to utilize the program?
Yes, I think that we could. Now, this is something different than the road crew.
This
We're
would
looking at, like that they do more work like the mowing and the weed eating, painting buildings, things like that. We have a lot of tradespeople who come into the jail. We have, and we use them. We even use like the educated. We have a couple tech students, tech graduates that are in jail right now, and we're using them in our GED program. As soon as they came in, we made them trustees, and we started a mentoring program with the GED program, and it's the same thing with the guys who come in that have a trade. If they're spending a year because they failed to pay child support, DUI, revoked offenders that are serving 6 months or more, and they have a trade, we immediately snatch onto those people and say, is this something that you would like to do? It's not forced. I mean, it's offered. We have this. We use them. They paint the jail. They do grounds. They do work around the jail. We have, the outside trustee usually is someone who has a lot of mechanical skills, or the plumbing skills that we discussed, or we use those skills. They buff the floors. One guy, that's what he did. He worked with a company, and they did floor buffing at nighttime in office buildings. They stripped the floors and buffed them. They do that in the jail. So we find people who have those trades, and we use them for that. As for the recidivism, that's really, really hard to pinpoint with these programs. We're trying to do a better job of that, especially with the GED and the substance abuse programs that we have. With the inmate programs, a lot of times you don't see these guys once they are out. If it's child support, the DUI revoked, it's just iffy whether they're going to be coming back or not. Like I said, it's really hard to collect that data because we've never really done it before. We've just recently, in the last couple years, started trying to figure out ways to do that. But the benefits of these type of programs for the inmates are huge. One, like you said, they're out all day long and they're working. They come home. They come back to the jail. It is their home. They come back to the jail and they're doing, and they want to eat their dinner and go to bed. They're up, first thing in the morning, and they go to work again. And like I said, we pick people, we try to assign them jobs that, fit their trade. They do manual labor, most of them, except for like we have an accountant. He's teaching GED math right now. Not teaching the class, but he's mentoring. We've housed him with some guys that's the part of their GED program that they need to pass. We've had 4 people graduate their GED program this year, and a big plus to that is, finding inmates, what is their niche, what's their thing, is it buffing, is it painting, is it, so they're just not sitting there and, talking to this meth dealer about, how much money he makes on the street. If it's just a DUI person, it just gives them something. These are the words that I've heard from some of these guys. I feel like I have a purpose. I feel like I'm doing something. I'm not just sitting here watching television, gambling, and making a bigger mess of my life. Just sitting here, 12 hours, during the day, with these other guys. And that's what they do. They watch television, they gamble. That's they play cards, they play games, they get frustrated with each other, and it causes fights. And these programs that we have for them, I know we're not a rehab facility, but these programs that we have for them, be it, being outside and mowing or painting or picking up, trash, or, mentoring this kid, being a peer tutor to this kid who can't pass the math part of his GED. And then, by golly, he takes the test next time and he passes it. Or just being able to use their trades. They get a lot of pride. I've seen it, this one, he was just so proud of his buffing job that I've come in the door in the mornings, and it's just like, they're like, be sure and, tell me what the captain says, or be sure and tell me what the lieutenant says, because they're so proud of the work that they've done. We do have some pretty rotten people that come through, they're not trustee material. We don't use them for trustees, but then we have some people, like I said, it's just, DUI, repeat offenders, child support, bad checks. That's what we keep at the Montgomery County Jail as our trustee crew. Some of them we don't trust to go outside, and they do the cleaning inside or help, pass out canteen and things like that. But some of these guys it's just crazy not to use their skill set just because they're incarcerated. Yeah, it's good to use I see where it makes a difference in their lives while they're incarcerated.
Okay, thank you.
But if anybody has any questions,
Any questions for Kim while she's up? Thank you, Captain. Other comments, questions? Or?
Yeah, just one question. The $155,000 that went for the sale of Junkin Street, that's not in this discussion at all, but it's sort of like the $74,000 in a way that we gave
Set
to.
aside for future school capital.
Yeah, it goes in the,
Future school capital pot.
And is that where we put the 74?
yeah, it goes
Same place.
So that's additional in the capital. Okay.
That's where the 2-cent tax
What was it,
is going.
155?
155.
155 and then the 74.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you took out for the maintenance and all of the buildings, right?
The county has reimbursed the EDA for the expenses related to that, yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Well, the
guess.
74,000,
Okay.
you said it already been.
We actually appropriated that at the last Board of Supervisors meeting.
That's me.
That's
But it
what I
was,
thought.
I think, part of the pot that I saw in the presentation.
It is,
before.
it is. It's this one.
Yeah, we put it under undesignated dollars, one-time funds. We put,
74,700.
yeah. It
Yeah,
said
it says
transfer.
to school capital.
That's what it said.
Do we still need to be in work session?
See, that's why I think we ought to be able to use the 560,000. That's ours to use.
I don't know if that's a discussion for tonight.
Right, we need to figure out the ongoing, the operating budget money.
Would you,
That's what we need to do.
Let's see.
could
Okay. Let me look at that.
Kim tell us exactly how much we're going to have in terms of the total amount of money?
I'm not certain. This is operating money, so that.
Right, that's ongoing.
$74,000. This is not one-time money, which is
I
separate.
know, but I
The
wanna
total
know.
amount of revenue, the total amount that we're asking the board to approve for the budget is $176,250,818.
And so
And the difference between the number I just said and the number that was in your budget proposal is, she just knocked it off the screen, was $274,749.
Right.
And that was the additional money that we got
Yes.
for,
But
period.
some of it was from growth.
Well,
in
this is just where we left off at the last meeting, so whatever changes you all want to make to that will be the changes we make in the budget document going
That's what
forward.
I'm asking.
But where we left off at the last meeting was the additional funds to the school operating, the 156, to the maintenance contracts for the public safety building, 19,000. And then where I thought we were was putting the rest of that money in special contingencies for a later date.
That's what I
That
thought.
comes up to your total of 176,258.18. So at this point, what we would need to know is, what do you want us to do with the 99.5? How do you want us to show that going forward in the budget?
And actually, we could show it as exactly that
Special
as part of the adoption tonight, is
Special.
leave it in special
Yeah.
contingencies, and then we can have further discussion about
Right.
how to allocate it back
That's what I
out.
want to know.
Thank you, Carol.
176,258.
A lot.
What's it, 8? I can't read that, I'm sorry.
Which number are you looking at?
176,
That
258,
258, and then I can't read the last three numbers.
818.
818.
250, not 258, 250.
Yeah, 176,
Oh, is it? Oh, I
258,
thought she
18.
said 258. But she was putting it together with 818.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Contingencies?
Okay, then down here, school operating fund.
Yeah.
And read that to me, because I'm having trouble seeing it.
Well, what was proposed in the budget was $1,975,205. And then from our discussions last meeting about the $274,749 additional revenue, we said the board seemed to have by consensus $156,249 additional funds going to the schools, which means the funding in the operating budget for the county schools would increase by $2,131,454.
Okay,
Did I say that right?
that's what I want to know.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I can't.
No,
read
you're
it.
fine.
I can't read it. Okay. And they actually wanted, what did I have over
They
here?
wanted
19?
300, well, no, that's one-time money.
Yeah.
They wanted,
300.
you've got to understand, they had the $400 and some thousand additional money that they got from the state, but there's still about $1.5 million, so somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, less than what they requested.
We'll see.
And that's a ballpark, give or take.
It was, I'm looking at
I had-
John and Katie, it was like 3.9, and then you got about 400,000 more, which brought it down to 3.5, and this would address 2.1 of the 3.5. Is that?
Okay, it was 3.9. We brought it down to 3.
About 3.45, actually.
Because with this money,
Yeah.
all right, with the 400, so it's still about $1.4 million short of what they
Yeah.
requested. Am I right, Craig? Okay.
All right, and we're going to put how much of this into contingencies? A bunch.
The 99.5.
The 99.5, that's all. On the ongoing funds.
Yes, ma'am.
The one-time dollars,
We haven't done anything
we haven't
with.
done anything. We started out with 678,707. Is that correct?
That, yes, ma'am.
That's windfall. Then we started with undesignated 404,360. Is that correct?
Are we kind of at a place where we're okay with what's up there?
I would, personally, I'd like to see us address some of the issues that we know are part of that $99,000. We're here for our budget meeting, and we could leave it at special contingencies, but I would like to see us try to address some of the issues. I think that we're probably not going to have a better speaker than what we have with Kim telling us about the advantages of the inmate work program. I think all of us, maybe I'm wrong, I'm in favor of the additional $5,000 for Christiansburg Institute.
I am.
I think the majority of us are in favor of, and maybe I'm wrong, on the employees setting aside about $9,500 to try to address employees who are below the poverty level. We may not need that, but at least we could take a look at that and set that money aside. We've talked about spending money on the fire and rescue, the $13,000. If we set aside the $35,000, I know it's just a start. I know it's a drop in the bucket, but reoccurring to start trying to look towards addressing.
Did that request come from the task force? Where did that come from?
I was frankly talking with some of the folks with fire and safety rescue, and they're going to come and talk with us, I think, at some point in time and ask for a sizable amount more than what we're giving towards fire and rescue to help replace the fire trucks. You know, as we all know, fire truck starts at $600,000.
You on the thing?
And so, but the other thing is, in my mind, we've got to start setting aside some kind of money because we know we can't borrow any, and start looking at trying to find a few nickels to put together to address the needs of the Charlottesville Rescue Squad and the Roanoke Rescue Squad.
What the request was, and I guess I sort of helped initiated that request, was for $13,000. This would support the grant, I guess almost a $500,000 grant that they got, $400 and some thousand grant to build a training facility there in Merrimack. And it wasn't all inclusive of the funds that they needed, like to get water to the property, and once water's on the property, you got to get it up to the burn building and so forth. So it was $13,000 they were trying to find.
And that's where part of that $35,000, and then it would also address if there's any other needs for capital. But we could start, if we didn't spend that money, we could set it aside. I know it's $35,000 a year, but the next, if we start setting aside, maybe we add to that fund that we won't have to borrow money, that we'll be able to pay cash for it at some point in time in the future. But again, that was just my thoughts, and speaking with some of the fire and rescue folks, that I think they're going to come to us and approach a larger amount than the one penny to try to address some of their capital needs.
I think I'd rather wait to hear directly from them, and for now we can keep it in special contingencies. So,
could we put?
Well, not the 35, but can we put 13?
The 13 we had sort of
for
talked about.
Fire and rescue.
that would be fine.
Yeah.
Sure. I'm
That would
okay
be
with
fine.
that.
And then
Yeah, we had talked about
And then leave.
the 5,000 for the Christiansburg Institute, I think that would be fine. The 9,500 for the employees, that would be fine. I'm still not convinced about the employee workforce, or the trustee workforce, but I think I'd be fine. I mean, I think Chris is asking for us to appropriate it, so it'd be fine we probably should maybe get the consensus of the board, and if everybody else except me is in favor of it, then there's nothing I can do.
What about the consensus on the work crew?
Now, is that putting it in that special camp?
For now, yes.
Yeah, for now.
Okay.
Or do you?
Well, I was going to ask.
You want it to be appropriate.
Yeah, appropriate. You want to
No, I
go? Okay.
wanna
So we have
consider
consensus
some of the
to support the work crew requests.
Adding it to the budget.
To the
not-
budget,
Not
yeah.
just simply setting it in contingency.
I'd like to get a little more information on it.
I'd like to keep it in contingencies because right now, in my mind, it's competing against the voting machines.
We're talking about
Reoccurring money versus
I know.
one-time money.
I know.
versus one-time money for the voting machines.
I know.
So all total, we have in one-time funds, let's see, $1,083,000, $83,067. Is that what we have in one-time funds?
Which one are we talking about?
This is this one.
Here's
Yes, ma'am.
this
If you
one,
have that one, if you have that
and
one.
Well, it's the same,
this one,
except that
and together,
contingencies.
they equal $1,083,067.
That's correct.
In one-time funds that we are going to discuss. Now, that's added to the budget?
Yeah.
No,
Well,
ma'am.
no.
Right, okay, I just want to ask the question. I know it isn't.
So-
That's set aside.
Mr. Chairman, when trying to figure out where we're at, we've already agreed on the public safety building maintenance.
Right.
Right.
We've already agreed, well, the majority agreed on the increase in the schools. The Christiansburg Institute adding that.
Right.
13,000 on the fire and rescue,
Right.
and 9,500 as far as employee wages.
Is that a consensus for what he said?
And that adds up to what? And what do we have here? 18.
That should leave $85,000 in contingencies. And somebody else may correct me, but I think it's 85,000.
I need my calculator.
72? Okay, thank you. There's a reason I'm an attorney and not an accountant.
Now, Chris, was you talking about the 50,000 or the 99.5?
I had cut down 99.5 to
To
a total of $91,500. If you look at the one-time money and the inmate work crew, we're not hiring a full-time employee, so there's no FTE, and so I'm just setting aside $50,000 for overtime money for trained deputies to be able to monitor the program, and so that would draw from a pot. And so, and from my understanding, they have enough deputies who want to work overtime. We have deputies who are working second jobs. They would much rather work overtime than a second job. And so that's what I was talking about, for the 50,000. That's where that money comes from.
That would be strictly overtime.
That would be strictly overtime money.
And if you're gonna do that, why not vote on the whole thing, get to what animal shelter and everything else that was in the other one, and do it and be through with it. Instead of having to come back in here and listen to another bunch of mumbo gumbo for 2 or 3 hours.
Where's my calculator?
Do we have to add this? Do we have to add this amount to the original budget? What do we add to the original?
No, that's what's up
It's
there.
what there.
That's what's up there.
That's okay. That's what I'm. That would make it 176, 250.
88, yes, ma'am.
Not to confuse things, but one thing about the $13,000 for the burn building is I believe they're going to need that before July 1.
Right.
And these monies are July 1. You will be approving them tonight, but they won't be available for the budget until July 1, because these are ongoing operating. What we had intended to do was come back at the next meeting, because where we left off last time was take the $13,000 from the increase in the capital reserve that showed up on one of the slides in one-time only money and do the appropriation now, so we would not hold up anything for the burn building.
I guess we couldn't spend it now and pay for it in July. Okay, could you put up the other slide with the I guess the county services contract, all the little things in it that you were just talking about that.
All right, you talk about which.
That adds up to the 274,
Yeah.
749.
Let's see, that is.
That one.
Okay.
Yeah, this is maintenance.
Keep worried that you're.
Inmate. I'm trying to see what, now, we are together on, I guess, all of them except the inmate crew, I believe, and
And I'm hoping to convince 4 of you on the inmate crew.
And the amount to the fire and rescue.
an amount to the fire and rescue, okay. So,
What about the animal shelter?
All right, double check
What's
the
that?
map.
One of them.
Well, no, that's on the one-time money that,
I didn't see the one on the last one.
Yeah.
man, that's right.
I think next time you better just do ongoing funds. You get the one time.
well, I tried. That's how I started the discussion tonight, but we didn't get there very far.
Yeah, you did. That's why I asked you.
Okay, I guess if we could figure out the 50,000 and the 35,000,
Can we do
probably
like just thumbs up, thumbs down?
This is ongoing money.
ongoing money.
Yes.
This is every
Okay.
year.
And this is
They
the,
claim that there's no money going to be available for the county.
For what?
For dog.
No, that's one-time money. This is reoccurring money. We do, on the 2 other slides back, from the $1 million pot, that's one-time money. There is what I propose to set aside monies for the animal shelter. But this pot of money right here is the reoccurring funds.
But you're gonna have reoccurring for fire and rescue, but not animal shelter?
And part of that reasoning is, and I guess I look at I've always had animals, I love my dogs, but I feel like that we need to start addressing some of the issues with fire and rescue. We're not putting a whole lot of money away, we're just putting a small amount, and it's going to be a reoccurring fund to start trying to set aside some dollars.
What if instead of calling that, so we appropriate the $13,000 and then with the $22,000 that are remaining, we just put that into county capital
I could live with
and
that.
building fund. So it goes into county capital and then we can decide,
Later on what to
later
do.
on we can go to the animal shelter, we can go to the fire and rescue.
Yeah, I like that better.
Okay, does that sound fairly well, like we could get some consensus on that.
What's the total money?
It would be 13,000 going to the fire and rescue, and then, was it 22? 22 going to county capital.
And that county capital could be the dogs, it could
It could
be...
be, yeah,
Fire and rescue, it could be libraries, could be...
it could be anything.
Yeah.
I just need to repeat something Carol said a minute ago. If you do that, you're not making that $13,000 available until July 1st.
Well-
And so what we need to do is have that appropriated separately, and we were going to do that at the next board meeting. So I know everybody's trying to make sure that 13,000 is addressed, but our plan, staff's plan, was to have that addressed before you even get to July 1.
Well, then
So you
maybe
wouldn't-
that 35 should just go to county capital.
Okay, so you were,
Okay.
okay.
But with the understanding, when we...
Well, but it still ain't gonna be used, is it?
and
I
then-
wasn't in favor of the $200 and some thousand dollars that we had for the animal shelter, so I'm not gonna be in favor of 13,000, 15,000.
No, but Eric,
It's-
that money's still there. That's one-time money,
That's
that
over
200. This is
But it's very
one-time
confusing,
money
it really is.
that is operational.
I think
I think
I think the only
three
thing we really
different
need
funds.
clarity on now is the inmate work crew.
Inmate work, that 50,000 up there for inmate
Yeah.
work crew.
Could we put that 50,000 in one-time money so we could try it 1 year?
The only,
Because if we don't, it's gonna be there forever and it may
Well-
not work out.
well, if it doesn't work out, then remember, we didn't hire anybody.
That's right.
But if it does work out, we do have that money set aside, and it's there if we need it. And it would be, and I was trying to listen to what I've learned, is if it's a reoccurring expense, if you're hiring people and you're doing hourly work, it better be coming out of operational funds.
Right.
Because the next thing you know, that one-time money, you get behind the eight ball.
Yeah, but you know, this right here, 50, plus we already give 20,000, so that's $70,000.
The 20,000 is for roadside.
Right.
The roadside.
County roads.
Right, and that was as I understand, a matching grant that they were working with some other folks. Now, I made
It's with the contract they have.
with the contract.
Yeah.
This would be, those guys are not running mowers, they're picking up trash. This would be guys running mowers and cleaning
Shoveling
up
snow,
trails,
yeah.
shoveling snow, that type of thing, which would be different work.
Well, if we could put that one-time money for we could try it a year, I'd be for it, but I can't, not recurring money. Because we don't know if it's gonna work out or not.
Well, the way I see it is that it's like an evaluation period. You buy the equipment, you use the 50,000 for time and a half pay, and then at the end of that 12-month period or whatever, you evaluate it, you look at it to see, did it work? Did we get reports from the sheriff's office, so to speak, to see the successes or failures with the program? And if not, then there's no more funds for it, it's scrapped.
Yeah, but it's like it was brought up before. If you give them $50,000 sheriff department for overtime and it don't work out, then next year, I think Matt said it, when you go down there and take it back because it didn't work, it looks like we're cutting their budget.
You don't take it back, you just don't appropriate it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah, but still,
it's appropriated for
like
that
Matt
line
said,
item.
If he
Yeah.
gives you
Yeah.
2 apples today and 1 tomorrow, he cut you short.
It depends on whether that apple, if that apple was just for Monday, you know, instead of the rest of the week, just like this is specifically for the inmate crew. And that's the only thing that they could charge it to. They can't charge that to riot control training. They can't authorize that to be spent for traffic control or any kind of that. All they have to use it to spend for the inmate work crew.
And Todd, I want you to think about this. Remember those $40,000 in contracts that we're not going to initiate next year? That would be a reoccurring expense now, and I'm hoping that this thing works. If it doesn't, we're going to be dealing with those contracts and re-upping it.
Does that include a new truck?
Yeah,
Not that money. Remember, that comes from the one-time
Yeah,
money on the
I
other
don't care
slide.
where it comes from, does it include a
Yeah,
new
but then
truck?
that goes
That money
against
does not.
$28,000.
That money is just for the overtime for the deputies.
It's not going for them
What
to use.
happens?
That $50,000 is just for the deputies
Then you're gonna
to
start
be
taking
paid
it.
overtime.
Where do you get the money from for the truck?
It's a
That
One-time.
comes out of
One-time
one-time money. It's
Against other
$21,500.
It's still people's money, and I don't think we should be
Shouldn't be using it for what?
Well, I think what it is you're gonna pay for the equipment out of the one-time fund, so you have to be, what's so confusing about this is we need 3 screens. We can look at each of the screens and see, elementary teacher here. And what's happening is the equipment would have to be paid for out of your windfall, or out of your one-time money.
Right.
And that's gonna go against other things that we considered paying out of the one-time money. So you're making a decision on this slide without really having the other one in front of you. And so you have to think about both. Like if you're gonna have overtime, that's not gonna do any good if you don't have the equipment to have the overtime with. So if you're making a commitment for overtime, you gotta make a commitment for equipment on the other side, right?
Right.
Okay. So you gotta be willing to do both.
That's what I say, you put it all in one-time money.
Back when we
But that
started.
one time,
Pretty much.
a lot of, there's a lot of demands.
I think back where we
But
started.
you
Is
gotta
there,
have a new truck and you gotta pay these people, for watching the inmates.
Yes.
And then you gotta get them out there, and they're gonna work maybe 6, 7 months out of the year.
It depends.
If their job is mowing grass and that type of thing. I just, I'm not in the business of hiring people, thank goodness. And that's basically what you're doing.
Okay, consensus one way or the other. If the 50,000 for the inmate work crew, either it's up or it's down. Thumbs up or thumbs down. Let's see. I think.
Well,
that's
I need to
thumbs
look at
down.
the other slide to see the
Thumbs
equipment
down?
money.
Okay.
I can't decide.
Well, if she can't say, not more.
No, I think
Because I don't know- I
Mark's been
don't know
sitting
if
for
I'm
2
for-
hours, he needs to get up.
I don't know if I'm for taking it out of the other stuff there. Okay, there's okay, 41,500.
Yeah, 41,500. That would be for the mowers and the truck.
yeah, you're not taking it out of anything.
Okay, but the animal fund's been the animal shelter's been reduced, the school funding's been reduced. Yeah, it has.
It has. It
Yeah,
could-
so
but it-
see, voting machines have been added in because we didn't know that they were gonna have to, so see, in my mind, see, all of this is competing for the one-time money, and that's why I don't feel like I can do A if B is gonna hurt something I feel more strongly about, and B being the one-time money.
We could reduce that restore capital reserve because we just decided that we were going to appropriate $35,000 per year into capital reserve. That would essentially replenish what was going on.
We could utilize some of that, the money from the capital reserve.
We could
If-
also-
If we're setting aside 35,000 per year, we wouldn't necessarily have to put 42,000 to restore it. But I do think we have to address some of the fire and rescue needs, but
And
that might give us $42,000 on that.
And the other thing too is that we had, I had suggested instead of the employee bonus is doing the parental leave bank of one-time money, which is only 75. So if you combine the restore capital reserve with the employee bonus, with the surplus of that, then you have $57,000-ish that you could either put back into school funding or you could move over to the animal shelter or split in some
Okay,
way there.
and then I guess my other question is then, are we thinking that the study for the library is out? After I brought back the information from the library board.
Well, I would take out the work crew and put it in there, but
See, I guess those are the things that are going through my mind, about the competition between.
I think, to me, like, this is undecided. Like, I don't think anybody's a hard no on this, but
Right.
I just think that not today. Like, that's where I am at least. Gary seems more kind of firm in his no, but again, I want some more information, and so.
And I guess there's only one thing on that may end up actually paying for itself and actually putting more money back in, and that's the inmate program, because there's $40,000 that we know, and it's not factored in there, that we're paying out already.
Chris, you are a good lawyer.
It's arguing his case.
You are really good.
Well,
I would never want to go against
I feel strongly
you.
about it. Maybe it's because I'm in and out of the jails, and I do see what Kim talks about and the pride that inmates have, but I also see what happens in the back. And you get people and you put people in a cell, and yes, they've done something wrong, but they're in there and they're playing cards, they're gambling, they're doing all the things that she says.
Wait,
Okay.
so this just occurred to me, and I apologize that
Okay.
it had not occurred to me earlier, but so if there's $40,000 in existing contracts that we would not sign up for, you're suggesting that
Approximately. It was a ballpark figure that we got.
That included snow removal.
that
I would be very concerned July 1 to take that step. Now, I think we can start utilizing a crew, see how it functions, and then over time, because we did check on the termination clause in our contracts, we have to give a 60-day notice. But I wouldn't just say July 1 and then all of a sudden be backlogged and not be able to keep up with what we have to keep up.
So really, we're not necessarily potentially funding this inmate work crew for the 12 months, so we wouldn't necessarily need the full $50,000.
I wanted to be conservative. That's why I scaled it back. Remember the initial request was $55,000. And
Yeah, and you move some of it to one-time money and you scale that back as well. But if we're still anticipating using the contracts at least for several months, just to make sure that things are moving, then maybe that extra $50,000 is not necessarily. I mean, the one-time money, right? If you start this, you're going to have to buy a truck. You're going to have to buy.
Yeah, you gotta
that,
do it
that I
now.
understand. But some of those other monies could perhaps be scaled back. Again, I think we should put it in special contingencies, and we should talk about this some more for right now. I think we're agreed on everything
But
that we
that.
can adopt the budget except that one thing.
Right.
And we're all just like, well, we just need more information.
Okay, you got a good point right there.
I agree.
I think we take that point and set it aside for later discussion. And when we don't have all the numbers up there, confusing our board members and so forth, we
Yeah,
can focus in on that one thing.
I'm not
And so,
confused. I just-
you're not confused? Okay.
Well, you know,
But you need to see it
I'll
all in
say
front of
this.
you.
I'm not
Other than that inmate crew, I would vote for that, everything we can.
Okay. What about you? Okay. What about you, Mary?
Are we talking about the one-time funds right now?
Which thing are we talking about?
No, I'm not. No, not the one-time funds. We need to go back to the other slide.
Yeah, the other slide where we're doing the ongoing money, I can support if we put that one thing in contingencies.
Well, that's what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
I was going to try to get
That's
that.
why I say you need to have more screens so people can compare and contrast.
No, we don't need to.
Yeah.
No. Sorry. The other PowerPoint, please.
Other one, okay.
Yeah. And just
Back
go
up, back up a slide.
Back one.
back. One more slide. That.
That one.
That one.
Thank you.
There we go.
Okay.
Okay, we can do the 19,000 for the maintenance. Everybody's good with that?
Yeah, let's do them one at a time.
Okay, one at a time. Inmate crew, is that up, thumbs up, or thumbs down right now? Or we set it aside?
We're setting it aside, I thought.
We set it
Yeah.
aside.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's 50,000 is set
Okay.
aside in, I guess, special
Special contingencies.
contingencies. Okay. Increase to the schools,
Yeah.
156,249.
That
Do
one,
Is that-
okay.
Well, if
Good
you
with
remember,
everybody?
Three of us
Yeah.
voted against and 4 voted in favor.
Okay.
Okay. Christiansburg Institute,
Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
it has to be.
Fire and rescue, we talked about that one, well,
This could be a
just
fund.
taken
County.
and put it in county contingencies,
Yeah.
special contingencies, county capital. okay.
County capital.
Yeah.
County capital.
County capital, yeah,
Okay.
we can do that.
And lifting the employees above the poverty level with the 9,500.
Can do that.
And that gives us,
The
Puts
two
us
sig.
$85,000 in contingencies. Double check my math, I'm sure.
No, 50.
No,
Just 50.
It's just, yeah,
Oh, okay.
Because the
50.
fire rescue,
Yeah.
that goes in county capital.
Yeah.
right,
yeah,
So that's the,
yeah. Is everybody good with that?
yep.
yep. And
Yes.
what is the total?
The total is
274,
274,749.
Okay, that's what I,
Okay.
And that matches,
that
Now,
matches
do we
the
need to work on
available.
the other slide?
No, not tonight.
Are we good? We're good. We're good.
Chair,
No.
can I take a break? I've got a bad cramp in my leg and I.
No, you can't take a break. You've been putting us through all of this. Yeah, take a break. Take 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes.
Work session.
Second.
Have a motion to go out of work session.
Second.
And a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed? Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
We're out of work session. Okay, now, the next item on the business is, on our agenda is old business. Subject A, resolution setting the real estate tax rate and other property taxes.
Mr. Chair, this is the resolution that sets the annual tax rate, and the numbers we have been discussing this evening are all based on the recommended and advertised real estate tax rate of 89 cents per 100 valuation. And the two blanks that you have on your resolution, those two blanks would be filled in with 0.89 or 89 cents per $100.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? I guess we beat it to death. Okay, would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed?
Aye.
Mr. King?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Subject B, resolution establishing the FY 2015-2016 budget.
Mr. Chair, again, on this item, the numbers that we've been discussing this evening, the total amount for the fiscal year 16 budget is $176,250,818.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, discussion.
Does that have anything to do with these things we've been,
That includes all those things we've discussed, yes, sir.
Well,
those things?
Includes them.
the number, but we're not voting on those, the
specifics.
207, we're just voting to, we're not voting on the $274,000 at this point in time.
Yes, you are. The
Yeah.
274,749 is included in that total that I...
Okay, included in that
176.
total.
Because that's
amount,
ongoing
not the
operating.
expenditures.
Not the individuals.
Right. You set
Amounts.
That's why I meant to say that.
Well, you set aside the $50,000 into special contingencies, the $35,000
Trying
in
to save Mark from jumping up out of the
County
chair since he's
capital.
in such pain. But where we left off was, everything you see on this list, we had the 19,000 and the amount to schools will show in the amount to schools, the 19,000 will be to the public safety building. The $50,000 for the inmate work crew is not approved. We're holding that in special contingencies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Make sure we're on the right place. We are going to show an additional $5,000 for a total of $10,000 to the Christiansburg Institute.
True.
And the $35,000 will be posted to a transfer to county capital funds. Is that correct?
Right.
Correct.
And then we'll probably hold the $95,000 in special contingencies as well, specific to the employee wages above the poverty level until we determine how that has to be distributed
You
to
said
the
95,000, 9,500.
Oh, sorry.
9,500.
I'm not used to such little
Not just a
numbers.
little bit.
I'm not used to those little numbers.
Thought it went up.
Any more discussion? Any further discussion?
Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Thanks.
Have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Ms. Perkins?
Aye.
Mr. Tuck?
Aye.
Mr. Gabriel?
Aye.
Mr. Creed? Mr. King?
Aye.
Ms. Biggs?
Aye.
Chair Brown?
Aye.
7 ayes.
Yeah, the business.
Okay, we have other business is the next item on our agenda.
Mr. Chair, the only item I would like to, or the only thing I'd like to say is a big thanks to Mark, Angie, Carol, Ruth, anybody else that had a part in this. We try very hard every year to give you guys a very fiscally responsible budget. And we know well, thank you. We know there's a lot of challenges, but we appreciate the support more than you know.
Okay, Mr. Gabriel.
Yeah, just as I notified all of you in an email earlier today, I just wanted to announce it here during the meeting as well, is that this was a very difficult decision to come to, but I've decided not to seek re-election this year in November. It's been a real pleasure working with you all, and although we've had a number of disagreements, it's been very enlightening, and it's been very reassuring to know that everybody here is working for the betterment of the county. We might just disagree on how to get there. I will, of course, enjoy working with you for the rest of the year, but I am happy that someone else has stepped up to seek the Democratic nomination, April DeMotts, who ran for Blacksburg Town Council a couple of years ago, and I'm happy to support her for that nomination and hope to see her on the board representing District G come 2016. So thank you all very much.
Thank you, Matt. Okay.
And I'd like to announce my intentions. I intend to seek the Democratic nomination to run again for the District F seat. It's been my honor and privilege to serve the citizens of District F as well as Montgomery County, so I will be seeking another term on the Board of Supervisors.
I think, I just got one thing to say. I think I'm gonna get a complex.
You're going to get a complex.
My first year here, 2 done bailed out, and the sheriff too.
Wait a minute, we got another.
Well, yeah, you got another one. That's right. Yeah, I'm building out December 31st. But I tell you, it's a very, very difficult decision to make. It's almost like you've been over here long enough to get to know the county staff, and we have some amazing staff. And you're sitting there and you can't have sleep a couple nights. It's almost like you're leaving your family behind, and it's a tough decision. And I've learned a whole lot on how the county operates, what dedicated people it has in its employee. It's just, everything's just great about this, because I come from like a municipal government when I came, and I always thought like counties were sort of like oddballs. They didn't do things exactly right, but I found out totally different. And then I've been over here almost 8 years looking for the money, is that people tell me that's hid over here. Well, I've looked in all of Carl's rugs and in our plants and everything over there, and I still can't find the money, because hey, this county, it's almost like there's a lot of needs out there that needs to be addressed. Just like Chris talked about the needs of fire and rescue facilities. We have school facilities that need to be addressed.
Animal shelter.
That's right, animal shelter and things. And matter of fact, we'll get an update on the 29th on the animal shelter, Gary. But it's bittersweet. I'm going to ride off into the sunset with Matt. Matt's going, and I'm leaving too. But I've enjoyed every bit of it. Of course, we got, 8 more months or something? Yeah, to hang in there. So if it's anybody, you guys want me to make Matt for a leave? Tell me. Okay.
Oh, boy, okay. When can we meet?
You got that many people on your mind? Send me a memo. Any other?
No. We will miss all of you.
Before I
We really
forget,
will.
the child abuse reception over at Montgomery County Courthouse on Thursday, the April the 23rd. Remember, Mr. Hall came and talked about it. It begins at 6 o'clock. I know everyone is invited. We've got a guest speaker and some reception there, and so hope to see some of you out.
Can I think Wednesday? Go ahead.
Chris, can you give my regards? Unfortunately, that's the same night as the Community Services Board meeting, and it starts and our meeting starts at 5:45, I guess. So I'm going to miss that, and I really wanted to go. So are you going to go? Can someone give us a report? I would really be interested in that. Thanks.
I do have a...
And I think, what is it, Wednesday afternoon, we have Solarize Montgomery County? 5:30. At 5:30 here, and so I think that's pretty huge. And then at one time, you were talking about getting some solar panels or something. Wednesday at 5:30, it starts it off.
Is that Craig, is that going to be downstairs?
It's going to be down here in the
In the-
front.
in the front.
And we actually have 2 food trucks coming as well, so come hungry.
I mean,
trucks.
of course, the county's not going
They
to pick up
okay
the
to
tab
be
on the
here?
food.
They
though.
okay to food truck? It is within the town, that's right.
So,
I mean, Craig,
we adjourned.
Solar
And some